Thank you. Let me find these 20 pages. I have to tell you one minor edit to that that more than gracious introduction was that it wasn't a piece of coaxial cable that I showed my wife. It was a piece of fiber optic cable, which I had tucked in my wallet. I think if I'd had like a coaxial cable that would have just been in my pocket, that would have been weird. Good evening, and thank you, Linda. I'm honored to be here tonight. I'd like to start by thanking Dean Sarah Bartlett, Jeff Jarvis, and Craig Newmark. Thank you all. I haven't frozen. 40 years ago, Steve Jobs talked about the role of technology in our society, and he used the example of the bicycle. He talked about how computers could be like bicycles for the mind, extending the mind, amplifying our capabilities, while all the while keeping the human central to the experience. I love this metaphor. It is what drew me to this business. I saw technology as a creative tool to empower people and to change the world. I remember my wonder 25 years ago, writing and editing on the open internet. I could publish anything from anywhere, and I could find almost anything in the entire corpus of human knowledge. Google and others organized all this information. Tech was a great leveler. However, somewhere along the way, we've got lost, and a fog of determinism has settled over our industry. So tonight, I want to ask the simple question: what type of advanced society do we want to build? From Cambridge Analytica to Christchurch, technology is now shaping our society and our experiences. A small number of companies, Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, mediate the vast majority of our online experiences. The open internet has become a sidebar. And while the stated goal of these companies was search, or connecting friends, or maybe finding a video, it's become to understand everything so that they can shape our attention. Technology isn't really working for us, we're working for it. And just as these platforms mediate us as users, they're also mediating true innovation. Big tech companies are now how startups reach their customers. A typical startup will spend 40 cents of every dollar that it has on buying distribution or buying customers on these platforms. I see new startups today, new interfaces, new decentralized technologies emerging. Yet I also see the incumbents mediating innovation by gatekeeping users and data, absorbing the world into their data centers so that they can build predictive models of us. Data has become the core business of these platforms. Eric Schmidt, Google's former CEO, explained it like this: search is not just the web, it's literally all your information, your email, the things you care about. What I want is the computer doing searches constantly, because it knows who I am. You don't forget anything because the computer remembers. You're never lost. Do I want every experience to be optimized? It's convenient, but maybe I want to get lost. Did I sign up for my attention to be managed and behaviorally manipulated? Is this our idea of the good life? We shaped this technology, and yet it is now shaping us. I'm not a paranoid person, but hey, Google, I don't want the computer stalking me. I assumed I could trust you with my data, yet in January, a journalist discovered that Facebook was using a VPN to monitor kids' use of competitive apps. Then in February, Google admitted that a Nest thermostat included an undisclosed microphone. Then in March, Facebook admitted that it was harvesting phone numbers via a security feature. And last week, a journalist uncovered that YouTube had quelched internal dissent around trending toxic content. And we're not even 10 days into April. Nothing was written saying it had to turn out this way. This is happening because of a culture of optimization on one hand, and on the other hand, a market-driven imperative for growth. Hand in hand, these two forces are driving these companies to extend and keep extending this industrial data complex. However, change is happening. I can feel it. I've seen this before. Technology, and in particular network-based technology, tends to evolve more like a pendulum rather than a straight line. And it's changing again. It's decentralizing as people are starting to wrest control over their attention and their data. So now's the time to let some sunlight through the fog and to discuss what kind of advanced society do we want to build. Technology isn't in and of itself good or bad, but it's not neutral. I've learned that technology has a grain to it, and if we can discern and shape that grain in advance, we get the opportunity to actually understand and help shape the future. Here are two areas I think we can exact change. We can demand accountability from tech companies and creators, and we can develop a new ideology to counter this culture of optimization. First, we need to demand accountability from the experts who are shaping this world. There needs to be regulation and certification of tech. The idea that technology is too fast, too nimble to be regulated, or that self-regulation will create open and fair competition, just hasn't worked. Regulation and antitrust both can and should be applied. We did this with the pharmaceutical industry. We did this with finance. It can be done with tech. Furthermore, we should certify our professionals as we do with doctors and lawyers. If an algorithm fails to stop a live video of a massacre from trending, or if an algorithm in the software of an airplane mistakenly adjusts its flight pattern and causes it to nosedive, there should be consequences for the technology company and for the person who wrote the code. Regulation plays a role in accountability, as does journalism. Our belief, on our behalf, journalists ask why. Why are they collecting so much data? Why can't people get access to metadata? Why was a user banned? The Newmark J School sits at the forefront of this, a digitally native journalism school, graduating its first class just as the iPhone was launched. The faculty here understand the impact that technology is having on the world. Moreover, as a public graduate school with a broad and diverse student body, you help us see through this fog. You understand this form of data colonialism. You get under the surface to help us see not just the convenience, but also the trade-offs that we're making as a society. Second, and just as importantly, we need to assert a new kind of humanism, one that places the individual, the person, the human first, not the computer. One that counters the culture of relentless optimization. The sanctity of the individual, the dignity of a person, and our right to self-determination as a source of individuality are central to our society. The goal of technology companies should be to empower and bias our species. And that happens when we give people control over the raw material of this new world, data. Our data, thank you. Our data, our choices, we can build better. Remember the cautionary tale of Icarus flying too close to the sun. Icarus's father had a second warning. He also cautioned of flying too low and letting the sea destroy his wings. The sea of complacency is as dangerous as the hubris of the sun. Our job is to find the flight path between the sun and the sea, a path that values the human. We can build bicycles for the mind. This needs to start now. We can see both the power and the curse that we've unleashed. Over the next 5 years, we're going to connect much of the world into this new information ecosystem. Your car, your home, your DNA, every street sign, every medical device, it's all going to become connected. And computer vision and AI based on this data will start to automate this world, constructing models and data shadows of all of us. Now is the time for us to assert the architecture that we want around this data and these algorithms. I have a growing unease about technology today. You may too. We're not wrong. Each second, each instance, the world is remade. However, not so for this data. Biases persist and often become amplified. It's up to us to prioritize the humanity and the values of our society. Liberty of thought and feeling, freedom to make unmediated choices, and freedom from either state or corporate surveillance. Let's bend the arc of technology back to the human and build bicycles for the mind. We've done this before, we can do it again. Fair forward.